In 1947, a diary was first published in the Netherlands. It tells the story of a girl who took refuge during World War II. Because the story was so popular and captured the attention of many global citizens, the diary was translated into more than 65 languages. Anne Frank was one of over 1 million Jewish children who perished during the Holocaust. Anneliese Marie Frank was born on 12 June 1929 in Frankfurt, Germany. Anneliese Frank, or commonly known as Anne, is a Jewish child who is known as a diary writer. Anne lives with her parents, Otto Frank and Edith Frank, and a sister, Margit Frank. Anne's happy life started to be imprisoned around 1933, when Adolf Hitler became the German Chancellor and the anti-Jewish spirit exhaled by the Nazis began to torment Jewish families. Anne's father, Otto Frank, decided to save his family by leaving Germany and moving to Amsterdam, where he started his own business. After successfully leaving Germany, Anne, Margit and her mother followed Otto to the Netherlands in 1934. Anne and Margit then attended a local school, and this is where she began to show her talent as a writer. However, after Poland was occupied by Germany, the Netherlands quickly fell to Germany in May 1940. The fall of Netherlands into German hands made the Jewish people miserable with the introduction of cruel policies. It didn't take long, because in 1940 Anne was forced to leave the school and move to a special Jewish school. In the following years, the Nazis' cruelty escalated, especially towards the Jews, by arresting them and sending them to concentration camps. Realizing that leaving the Netherlands, which was already fully under German control, was becoming increasingly difficult, Anne's father and some of his confidants prepared a hiding place upstairs in his office that could be used if at any time the family was threatened. Before going into hiding, on Anne's 13th birthday, Anne received a small notebook as a birthday present, although it was actually an autograph book. Anne then decided to use it as a diary and wrote about herself, her family, her friends, the men she liked, and the places she liked to visit. Not long after, on 5 July 1942, Anne and her family moved into the secret room of her father's office at 263 Prinsengracht Street. In Anne's diary, she refers this place as the secret annex. Before taking refuge, they made a mess of their home to give the impression that they had traveled abroad. Anne's father also left a note that signaled they were going to Switzerland. In addition, to keep the family's existence in secret, the entrance where Anne and her family took refuge was also covered by a bookcase to make it look unsuspicious. There were only 4 Otto employees who knew about the Frank family's hideout. They were Ikta Kugler, Johannes Kleiman, Miepkes, and Bep Vosquiel. Everyone's life in the hideout was boring and suffocating. They were not allowed to make a sound during the day because even a small noise would alert the Germans to their presence. To fulfill their needs, daily necessities and news were supplied by 4 Otto employees. While in hiding, Anne spent her time with writing and studying. 2 years later, in March 1944, the people in hiding heard on the radio that all of the diaries and other important documents would be collected after the war as a record of what the Dutch people had experienced during the war. So, Anne rushed to edit and revise her diary, making minor corrections to the text and deleting passages that she considered too personal. Then, without any notice, on 4 August 1944, the Gestapo discovered their hiding place and raided it. The Frank family and friends had been betrayed. Anne and her family were immediately arrested and sent to Auschwitz. The 4 employees who had been helping were also arrested, but were soon released. 2 of them returned to the hiding room and found Anne's papers scattered on the floor. They collected them and put them away. Upon arrival at Auschwitz, Anne, Margit, and her mother were separated from Otto. They initially believed that Otto had died, although in the end he survived. On the other hand, Anne and her sister and mother were sent to the women's labor camp, while Otto ended up in the men's camp. However, in November 1944, a selection was made to transfer some of the prisoners to Bergen-Belsen, and Annie with Margit became one of them. Meanwhile, Anne's mother, who was in Auschwitz, suffered from a high fever and ended up in the sick barracks. Edith Frank eventually died on 6 January 1945. By early 1945, a typhus epidemic had broken out in the camp and was spreading rapidly among the prisoners. Eventually, in February 1945, they both died from the effects of typhus. After the Allies liberated all the Jews from the concentration camps, Otto Frank returned to Amsterdam after the war. He searched for news of his children and wife. However, after hearing the story that his 2 children died in Bergen-Belsen and also his wife, Otto's heart became sad and gloomy. One of Otto's employees, Mietkees, heard that Otto had returned and immediately gave him Anne's diary. Otto almost didn't recognize his own daughter from what he read. The experiences written there were so heartbreaking that he hesitated to publish them, but even so, it was clear that Anne wanted her writings to be read by others. After gaining courage and deciding to fulfill her daughter's wish, the first edition of Anne's diary was finally published in the Netherlands in 1947 under the title Het Atrocities. The book was later translated into English and even made into a drama,